What's up, everyone? This originally started as an Instagram story, but when I started to put the slides together, I realized that this was going to be much more complicated than something that I could just explain through a story, so I thought I should do a quick video on it. And this is a pushback against the idea that we should be vaccinating kids at younger and younger ages who are the least vulnerable to serious outcomes and death from COVID-19 because we are protecting society at large, the more vulnerable people in our society, by vaccinating the least vulnerable people in our society. Now, I think there's an inherent issue there when you're essentially saying we should vaccinate kids who aren't vulnerable in order to protect people who are, the majority of whom are 85 years old. If you look at the average age of death from COVID-19 in Canada, I believe right now the median age is 85 years of age. So I think there's a case to be made that that's a wrong decision based off of that alone. But let's assume that we agree. If we can show that vaccinated people are much less likely to spread COVID-19 than unvaccinated people, there's plausibility to vaccinating all people regardless of vulnerability. There are some serious holes in this argument that I'm going to bring forward right now. So the first thing that turned me on to this was the evidence out of the government of the UK in their published public health reports on COVID-19. Now, under vaccination in 1.7, you see a comparison of viral load cycle threshold, and this is in the PCR test, by vaccination status. And this is what you see. You might not be able to see what's highlighted there, so I'll read it to you. With a median of 17.8 for unvaccinated and 18 for those with 2 vaccine doses, and this is talking about the cycle threshold of the PCR test, this means that whilst vaccination may reduce an individual's overall risk of becoming infected, which I'm going to get into why that is probably not true, but let's skip that for now. Once they are infected, there is limited difference in viral load and cycle threshold values between those who are vaccinated and unvaccinated. Given they have similar cycle threshold values, this suggests limited difference in infectiousness. Now, the government of the United Kingdom is not the only organization or place to come to this sort of conclusion. In the US, at UC Davis, let me scroll out of there. So in this article, viral loads similar between vaccinated and unvaccinated people, without going through the whole thing, I'll give you the key point here. A new study from the University of California Davis Genome Center at UC San Francisco shows no significant difference in viral load between vaccinated and unvaccinated people who tested positive for the Delta variant of SARS-CoV-2. It also found no significant difference between infected people with or without symptoms. So this is making the same suggestion. And then here is a preprint out of the Department of Pathobiological Sciences at the University of Wisconsin that also comes to the same conclusion, that viral shedding is high in both vaccinated and unvaccinated people. And it seems that once infected, the ability to spread COVID-19 is equal between groups based off of these tests. Now, if you're more on the pro-vaccinate everybody side, your next argument is probably going to be, well, that might be true, but vaccinated people are less likely to become infected. So even if once infected, you spread the disease equally, if you're far less likely to actually become infected, then it still makes the case for vaccinating everybody. Well, that might matter if the data is accurate, but the data is clearly inaccurate, and I'm going to show you why. This is from the CDC directly. COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough infections reported to CDC from January 1st to April 30th, 2021. The key finding that you will see in this report, which I've highlighted here, first, the number of reported COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough cases is likely a substantial undercount of all SARS-CoV-2 infections among fully vaccinated persons. The national surveillance system relies on passive and voluntary reporting, and data might not be complete or representative. So first of all, for vaccinated individuals, reporting their infections is completely voluntary. Hospitals don't even have to report vaccinated infections. Many persons with vaccine breakthrough infections, especially those who are asymptomatic or who experience mild illness, might not seek testing. So if we know that the vaccine greatly reduces disease severity, which is a good thing, also, you would logically think that less people who are carrying the virus and are infected, vaccinated people, less of them are going to be going to get tested, ending up in doctors' offices, ending up in hospitals. So we are also going to deflate that number of the actual infection rate with vaccinated people. SARS-CoV-2 sequence data are available only for a small proportion of the reported cases. Now, here's the kicker. Beginning May 1st, 2021, CDC transitioned from monitoring all reported COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough infections to investigating only those among patients who are hospitalized or die, thereby focusing on the cases of highest clinical and public health significance. So what they're saying here is as of May 1st, 2021, the CDC stopped monitoring any vaccinated COVID-19 infection that didn't result in hospitalization or death. So when you're using this data to suggest that there are far less vaccinated infections than unvaccinated infections, but number one, vaccinated infection counting is completely voluntary, and number two, the CDC directly is only monitoring reporting from vaccinated infections that result in hospitalization or death, then clearly the number of people being tracked who are vaccinated and infected is completely incorrect, probably grossly incorrect. By how much? Who knows? But this puts a massive crater in the argument that, okay, well, even if vaccinated people spread the disease equally to unvaccinated people, they're much less likely to get infected based on the data. Well, if you're only counting 1/10 of the amount of cases in vaccinated people, and even that is completely voluntary for hospitals to do, how can you think that you have the correct data to even make that assumption? Then somebody sent me this post from Twitter that was going back to the UK data from their weekly surveillance reports and puts up this chart. And this is from service.gov.uk. This is from their COVID-19 vaccine surveillance report. You're looking at week 41 here, which is weeks 37 to 40. And if you look, the black bars, this is the cases, COVID-19 cases in the UK, which is one of the most highly vaccinated regions in the world. The black bars you see here are the number of cases per 100,000 people in fully vaccinated with 2 doses. The shaded bar beside, which is lower in every single category aside from under 18, is the rate per 100,000 in unvaccinated people. Now, this data conflicts with the text pieces of the report, so I thought there must be some sort of mistake here, or I'm not reading something correctly because this is a conflict with what is being reported in the text reports. But then when I went and looked back at the week before and the week before and the week before, you see the exact same trend. So this is from week 35 to 38. You see the same thing, equal to higher levels of COVID-19 cases per 100,000. So this isn't, you can't make the argument, well, oh, the 85% of the population is fully vaccinated, so of course you're going to see more vaccinated cases. That would be true if this wasn't a rate comparison per 100,000 people in the population. The vaccinated cases in the UK are higher than the unvaccinated cases. And you go back again. This is weeks 34 to 37, rates per 100,000, and you see the same thing. Now, there might be something here that I'm not getting, because it appears that there's a conflict between the graphic data and the text data. So if there's something that I don't understand, or something that I'm not reading here, if I'm incorrect in some way in how I'm reading this, I hope somebody tells me. But I was as diligent as I could possibly be, going back into 5 different separate surveillance reports, the week before, the week before, the week before, and you see the exact same thing in the exact same charting. And this is in figure 2. What section of the report is this? I'll just say the page. So this is on page 17 of 33 in the vaccine surveillance report. But even let's assume that this is some sort of graphical error, which I can't imagine how they've done that week after week after week. You should be concerned that all of these studies are showing that the ability to spread COVID-19 between vaccinated and unvaccinated people is exactly the same, and that they stopped counting vaccinated cases of COVID-19 outside of hospitalization and death, and the reporting is completely voluntary. So when you say, oh, well, the data shows that you're much less likely to actually become infected with COVID-19 if you're vaccinated, well, how do you know that that's true? It's clear. It is clear that for some period of time, vaccination greatly reduces disease severity and death. That is important. That is good. This takes nothing away from that portion of the vaccine. But if you're saying that vaccine passports, mandatory vaccine passports should happen, not only that, but we should be vaccinating 5 to 11-year-olds, and that should be mandatory. And then we should be vaccinating 6 months old to 5-year-olds because we need to vaccinate the entire population. Because if we vaccinate them, even though they're not at great risk, it will prevent infection and spread. It doesn't seem like that's holding much weight as time goes on. And regardless of where you stand in COVID-19 vaccinations, you should want the best data possible, and you should be interested in data that challenges your current understanding of this situation, because we're forcing parents to make difficult decisions about vaccinating their children, or your kid doesn't go to school. Imagine being a single parent and having to make the decision between vaccinating your child if it's something you don't want to do, if it's something you think is unjustified. But if you don't do that, you need to leave your job and homeschool your kid. These are situations that people are going to be facing. And if you're going to put a person in that position, you better be dead clear and accurate about your reasons for putting someone in that position and forcing them to make that decision. And it doesn't look like the data to support that point of view is very strong. And with each passing week, it's falling apart more and more. So again, I don't say this to change anyone's mind. I put this stuff out there to let hesitant parents know you have a reason to be hesitant. Regardless of the decision you make, it's not as clear cut as some people would have you believe, and you should be empowered to make a decision that you are 100% comfortable and confident in. And when you look through this stuff, it doesn't seem as straightforward as those with the loudest voices and with the greatest amount of authority would have you believe.